In this video, guys, I want to share with you my story, how I got started in this dropshipping space a handful of years ago, and then also 5 lessons, painful lessons that I learned over the course of about a 6 to 7 year period. So hopefully you can take these 5 lessons and not make these mistakes and not take you, more than half a decade to learn these lessons like it took me. So I had always kind of heard about dropshipping, and I tried it a while ago, and I thought it was kind of silly. I tried it about 10 years ago, didn't really have any success with it. Then I tried dropshipping on eBay about 5 to 6 years ago now, and I made some sales, but after everything was said and done on eBay, it costs money to list the item, and there's higher fees, and you have to pay every month to renew the item, and I had a store to try to get the fees down. So really, after I sold these items on eBay when I was giving it a shot, it didn't really make any money. And there was a point in time, for anyone here that's really familiar with the dropshipping space, basically what happens is there's platforms or websites that are good to dropship on, and then they go away. And sometimes certain ones stay around longer than others. That's not to say there couldn't be a platform or a website in the future that might be around for, 30, 40, 50 years. There's been websites that you could start that have been good to dropship on for almost a decade before they went under. And then there's ones like eBay, which was good for a little bit, but to dropship started to go downhill. So I had done these things. I tried dropshipping, I believe like 10, 11 years ago I think it was something from a TV ad. I just remember seeing TV ads and saying you could buy these items and sell them and you could drop ship them. So I was kind of familiar with the concept, but because I didn't have any experience that it would work, and because I actually tried it a couple times without having experience that it would work, I didn't really think you could make money in that business model. Well, about 4 or 5 years ago, I started to see a lot of people making money drop shipping on Amazon. And I'll tell you guys what, I saw these people making money, and one of the mistakes that I made was I didn't do it. It took me about 2 years before I decided to start drop shipping on Amazon. And the reason is I didn't think it was possible. Even though I was read Rich Dad Poor Dad, very familiar with self-improvement books and residual income, big Grant Cardone fan for a long period of time, I saw other people doing it, and I almost believed they could do it, but I didn't believe that I could do it. It was like something in my head just told me that I couldn't do it. And by the way, this was after I started this other business and I was making over $100,000 a year in profit. So you can be successful in business and still have limiting beliefs that are very bad. So basically what happened is I started seeing all these regular people on Facebook post about it. I didn't think it was possible. I didn't understand it. I think I just really wanted to turn my head from it and not really face the reality that there might be a better way to make money than what I was doing. Well, a couple of years later, everyone is still posting all this money that they're making. And then what happened was really my confidence kind of grew with the other business I was doing, this phone flipping business. And I just started to believe that it was kind of possible for me. Maybe I deserved it. I was making pretty easy money phone flipping. So why could I not make pretty easy money drop shipping? So I hired a guy, and I paid him a little over $21,000 to basically set up an automated Amazon business for me. And we were going to do drop shipping and FBA. The FBA didn't really work out. Not that you can't make money with FBA on Amazon, just the way that it was kind of working with him, it wasn't really feasible to do. But the drop shipping we started doing. And what happened was I started drop shipping, and I remember, so I sent this guy all this money, and the first handful of months when I was drop shipping on Amazon, we started off with virtual assistants right away. So I was paying these virtual assistants and then paying software fees. And for about 6 months, I wasn't making any money. The first few months, I didn't make any money. And I remember month 2 and month 3 just wanting to give up. It was painful. I didn't like the way it felt. And I felt like I just spent all this money on automation. And I wasn't seeing a result. I was losing money at the end of the month because I had to pay for these expenses and the virtual assistants and all this. And to be honest with you, I would have thrown in the towel. I would have given up. I was in so much pain. But because like I was locked in with this guy and I already sent him so much money, it was almost like by just going all in, I almost forced myself to have to deal with the pain and follow through. Like if I just did it on my own, I would have given up. I would have given up if I did it on my own. But because like I committed to this guy and I already sent him $21,000, I just stayed with it. And then what happened was, after a handful of months, I actually started to get into the business myself. And I started to dive deep. And I love this guy that set up the automation for me, but there were some things that could be improved. And as I started to understand the business, I started to improve them. One of the things was I found a better software to do repricing. I found a better software to find profitable items. I started creating, and by the way, when I found that and I implemented it into my store about 6 months in, I then had a month I did about $4,500 in profit. It was about 6 months in, and that was the first time I actually had good money. The few months before that, so the first few months I wasn't really making any money, but then I'd have a month where I'd make like $300, but then the next month I'd lose $500, so it basically washed out for about 6 months. On like month 6 to 7, it made about $4,500 in profit. And then I started to look at other things, and I crafted and created all the customer service scenario scripts because I realized that customer service was unbelievably important. One of the lessons that I learned was that a lot of mistakes that happened in my business was a result of problems that happened earlier. So for those, we'd get claims on our store, or we would get chargebacks, like AZ claims. And the AZ claim doesn't just come about. I know I'm talking Amazon lingo here, but basically like if a customer reports your account, that didn't happen just in that day. That happened from something you didn't do correctly earlier that day, probably a few days before or a couple weeks before. And usually what would happen is like a customer would contact us and maybe they'd wonder where their order was. And maybe the virtual assistant, a common thing would be the virtual assistant wouldn't follow up with them correctly, wouldn't say the right words to them to keep them calm and reassured that their package was coming. And then maybe the customer might send us another message. And then the customer would get pissed off and they would report our account. So that report didn't come from the day they reported it. That came from us not doing things correctly in our store a few days before that, or even weeks before that, potentially picking items where the shipping time was too long that caused that issue to begin with. So I really took it. I would spend 20 to 30 hours a week, and I did this for a long time, diving into the business, looking at everything and getting everything really tweaked, right? I mean, I got everything really tweaked. Then I made relationships with other people because gift cards were real big back then, and I mean, it was, that's kind of what you did on Amazon if you wanted to be market competitive. And you don't need to do that with Facebook, by the way. I don't do anything with that on my Facebook account or in my client's account. That was something that was with Amazon. So I basically solved all these issues, and then my income went up. And then at that time, by the way, I took over the store. So the agreement with him was he would kind of get it going and then hand it off to me. So as we kind of got it going, and then as I started to fix all these, and again, love the guy, but there was things that could be improved, a lot of things, and I went in there and I fixed those, and that's why my store took off. The business, it started doing very good. We had months on Amazon, $8,000, $10,000 a month. And I tweaked things and I put people in place and hired on other people. I trained one virtual assistant over the phone. I role played with her over the phone, and she would call customers that were a little upset, and I gave her a script and taught her how to calm them down. So A, they wouldn't report our account or do a chargeback, and then they would, get the item and that really helped, by the way. That really helped with feedback. That helped reduce A to Z claims. The AZ claims on my store, for those of you that are familiar in the Amazon dropshipping space, my AZ claim rate was almost always under 0.5%. Like, I'm talking like 0.2%, 0.3%. If it got up to 0.5%, it was an issue. Now, sometimes it did, especially around Christmas, but it was like my Amazon account never got shut down once for ODR going too high. And for those of you that are in the Amazon dropshipping space, especially if you've ever hired someone else to run your store, you know that it's very common for accounts to go down because the ODR gets about 1%, 1.5%, and then the account gets suspended and it has to get appealed. That never happened once in my store because I dove deep. I saw all the problems. I solved all the problems, put systems, structures, templates, scripts, and processes in place, and prevented those problems from happening in the beginning. Did a bunch of things like that. It was beautiful. Then I got to the point making $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 a month. And I got to the point I was working about 2 hours a week. It was fully automated, except it took me about 2 hours a week just to check some manager stuff. I'm working 2 hours a week. It was about every 3 to 4 days, I'd spend about an hour on the computer, and I'd have these things I'd look at just to make sure everything's running tight. So I'm working 2 hours a week on the computer, not talking to anyone, not having to sell, not having to deal with any clients or customers or anything like that, just managing everything, and it was great. Then the store did $12,000, $15,000. 1 month last year did $21,000 in profit after all expenses and everything. And it was great. And then for those of you that are familiar with the Amazon dropshipping space, as you guys know, in 2021, it started getting hit hard. I've already made videos on my channel that go over why this is, but it started getting hard and they started really cracking down on dropshippers. And basically what would happen if someone left you a review or sent you a message that said the dropshipping company's name, that could, and depending on the dropshipping company, would trigger a review. And you can't prevent that. Like, you can't prevent, your dropshipping items from Walmart. You can't prevent customers from leaving you a feedback that says, my item arrived in the Walmart box. Or sending you a message that said, why did my item arrive in a Walmart box? Before, guys, the main thing that happened was before on Amazon, they didn't care about that. They kind of turned a blind eye and a blind cheek. As long as you were taking care of your customers and all that, it was fine. Not anymore. Not with Amazon. Amazon started cracking down on that, and you can't prevent that. And that was and is still a big reason that is causing a lot of people to get suspended on Amazon, and why dropshipping on Amazon is not a feasible business model anymore. Yeah, people will say, well, you just got to keep making new accounts. So, okay, you're going to keep making new accounts, and then what happens? The more you build the account up, the more items you sell, the higher chance of someone sending you that message. It's only a matter of time. It's harder to get accounts back. Before, you could get accounts back multiple times. I mean, I knew people, and you'd hear stories all the time of people that getting their accounts back from dropshipping suspensions 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 6 times, 7 times. That's not really the case anymore. So they're cracking down on that end as well. So I said, okay, this is dying, right? There's people out there that are lying. There's people out there that are still selling Amazon automation. I actually started marketing Amazon automation, but I saw what was happening, Amazon dropshipping automation. I saw what was happening and I stopped it because it was like, I wasn't just going to scam these guys out of money. There's lots of people out there on Instagram that are actually still to this day trying to get people to sign up for dropshipping on Amazon. You do not want to do that. You will. I mean, I can't tell you what will happen, but it's like, it's almost a fact that you will lose your money and get screwed. Like, you do not want to be doing that. So I stopped that. I said, okay, this platform's dying. Got to find something else. That's when I got into Facebook and dropshipping on Facebook. And one of the things I loved about Facebook is there was nothing in their rules, and there's still nothing in their rules or terms of service that says you can or can't. There's nothing that directly or indirectly says in their community standards, terms of service, rules, all those things, that directly or indirectly says you can't dropship. On Amazon, guys, even years ago, they said you couldn't dropship. That was in their rules, but they kind of just turned a blind eye. So they kind of allowed it, even though they said that you couldn't do it. On Facebook, it's nothing like that. Still, there's nothing like that on Facebook that says you can't dropship. So I said, okay, this is one of the big lessons that I learned. Trying to build something that was a little black hat. This was a major lesson. I said, okay, because I built all this on Amazon, it was going great, but it was kind of black hat, right? I was finding workarounds, trying to find workarounds that were fine, but then it got slammed. So I said, okay, the next business that I build, I'm not going to build something that's black hat, right? Because then I'm always trying to look for loopholes. I'm going to build something that's completely legit. saw all Facebook stuff, started building on Facebook. So from that, as you can see, those were some of the lessons that I learned. One of the lessons is build a business that's not... I've tried to find loopholes with other businesses and they can work for a little bit of time. Alex Becker talks about this too. It's not sustainable. Like, anyone that's massively rich didn't get rich doing any loopholes. I mean, there's no billionaires out there. You know, Grant Cardone's not doing real estate. Tony Robbins didn't start his info business. You know, Elon Musk didn't start his company. Bill Gates, well, I don't really like Bill Gates because of, you know, some other stuff. But, you know, all the Walmart guy, Walmart wasn't built doing anything black hat, doing anything under the table. Okay, they were built doing a completely legit business. Tesla's a completely legit business. Microsoft is a completely legit business, all right? It's, you know, Grant Cardone's real estate deal, it's a completely legit business. And I was tired from jumping around because I tried little loophole businesses in the past from trying to go all in, make some money, they close the loophole, I got to find something else. So 1, only do a legit business. 2, the power of time. I would have given up in that Amazon thing if I had not like basically forced myself to lock myself in with that guy. It was almost a good thing. Now that I can see things a little bit from a longer perspective, understanding the power of time. Like, one of the things I teach is if you're going to drop ship on Facebook Marketplace or really anybody, give it a year. Give it a year. Like, you can't give it a few months, especially if you haven't had skills drop shipping and you're learning these skills, you will have to go through a learning curve. So give it a year. You have to give it enough time to compound. There's a big thing in the entrepreneur space about taking massive action. Yes, take the massive action. Yes, be persistent. Yes, hammer it out, but still everything on top of that needs time. I used to be about 100 pounds heavier than I was now. And the first day I decided to lose weight, I started eating healthy. I had like 4 or 5 eggs for breakfast. Then I had like this nice, you know, not crazy salad or anything for lunch. I forgot if I had dinner, but if I had dinner, it was very simple. I worked out. And at the end of the day, I still didn't lose any weight. Like, I mean, I don't know. I might have lost a little bit, but if I look down after the first day, I still had this big old belly, right? The thing that was missing was my diet was good. Everything I was doing, the exercise plan was good. I just needed to give it time to compound. The first month, I lost 20 pounds of fat. The month after that, I lost another 20 pounds of fat. Giving everything time to compound is very important. One of the other lessons that's very, very powerful that I've learned is what's called the nurse lesson, which the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People guy calls the begin with the end in line. What's the net nurse method? So I used to go to a lot of bars in St. Louis when I lived there, and I would go there as a single gentleman and talk to the pretty ladies. And a lot of ladies were nurses. And it was kind of surprising because, like, I mean, a good percentage, not everyone was a nurse, but a lot of girls I would talk to were nurses. And I'd ask them how they liked it. And a lot of them didn't like their job. Like, sure, some of them liked the idea of taking care of people, making people feel better. But a lot of times nurses, and I didn't know this, are almost treated as like, people think they're at a restaurant and almost want to order the nurses around and kind of demand that the nurses, like, bring them food or bring them towels or whatever. A lot of these nurses are working 12 hours a day on their feet. 12 fucking hour shifts on their feet dealing with annoying patients. I mean, 12 fucking hours. That's like crazy. And if you're a nurse, you're going to be doing that for like the rest of your fucking life unless you retire at the age of like 65 or 70. So these girls I would talk to, they'd be like 27. They'd been a nurse for a couple years and they were already, I remember this one nurse, she was like, I think she was a nurse, or I'm like, not. Anyway, she's like, yeah, I'm like ready to retire. And she had like probably 38 more years to go. And with the way the world is and how inflation is and how it's going to be, I mean, it was going to be a lot longer. It's going to be longer unless something happens. So, like, you have to begin with the end in mind. My conclusion was, a lot of these girls became nurses because they liked the idea of if you're a nurse, you will have job stability. Job stability is a very big thing. That's a plus. A lot of people like stability. As a nurse, you're going to be making enough to support yourself, right? You'd be making 50, 70 grand a year. And I don't know in California, right, or New York, but, you know, that in, some of these other states where it's, the cost of living isn't that high, you could have a nice apartment, nice car, pay your bills, have food, and live. So I think what a lot of people do, and what nurses do, and other people do, is they think about the benefits, but not the downside. It's really important. One of the big lessons I've learned over like a 5-6 year period is before you get into a new business, imagine that you're going to be one of the top people in that business, that you will succeed. Imagine that you will win. And then make a list of all the pros. Maybe it's I'm making great money, blah, 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 blah. But then make a list of all the cons. And then determine if you want to move forward in that business or not. Is the cons worth the pros? Or will the pros outset the cons? Can you live with the cons if you become one of the top people in the business? Because a lot of times if you put in the work and you give it and you have enough time and you're massively consistent and you're willing to study, you can be one of the top people. And I think what a lot of people do is they don't look at the downside, they just look at the upside and the benefits. They achieve what they want in their business and then they feel kind of stuck. Other people will tell them they're doing good, and they are making more money than they were before, but they know inside in their gut that they feel kind of stuck and there's certain things they don't want. Like, I used to be a phone flipper, and I love the phone flipping business. I don't have time to talk about the details now. It's a great skill to have, by the way. I recommend everyone, go through the skills of it because it will like really, really, really help you out. But it's like there's a lot of cons to it. Like one of the cons in the phone flipping business is you can't really make it residual income. You will be self-employed in Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant. You will have to always be negotiating with people, always be meeting up with people. Is that something you want to do for the rest of your fucking life? Now maybe you say, Aaron, this is going to be a stepping stone business. I'm going to step on this business, learn the skills, make money, and eventually use the, because as a phone flipper, you can be working less hours, like 30 hours a week, and be making 6 figures a year when you get it all dialed in. Generally not in the beginning, but you can once you get dialed in, you give it a few years of work. Well, maybe you say, I'm going to do this as a stepping stone business. That was kind of my plan before I got started. But my goal is hopefully I can eventually transition to another business where I won't have to be kind of stuck in that business. And there's nothing wrong with that strategy either. But it's very important to have all the pros and all the cons laid out. Like one of the things I liked about dropshipping is the idea of automated income. I'm good at selling and negotiating. That doesn't mean I don't want to have to do it, right? I ideally want to find a business where I don't have to sell. I want to find like an easy business. There's a lot of things in life that are hard. Ideally, if I could find an easy business where I could make money 100% from my computer, where I could hire other people. That's a big thing with dropshipping. You can hire virtual assistants for cheap that can automate your dropshipping business so they can list items for you, handle customer scenarios, basically run the whole business and grow the store for you without you having to be there. That's one of the big lessons that I've learned as well, is that now when I look into a business, I want to see, okay, is this a business that I could eventually outsource? That I could eventually put people and systems in place together in a way where they could run the business for me so we can grow and it's making residual income. That's one of the things that kind of attracted me to the dropshipping space, was that it was possible. That's one of the big reasons I got into it, because I was phone flipping. I was basically trapped in the self-employed quadrant on Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant, and as a dropshipper, as long as everything worked out, the dropshipper was more on the business side, on the right side of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant, on the upper right side, right? It wasn't like, maybe it's not fully automated, maybe it's not a big business. I think Robert Kiyosaki calls it a big business, but there's still automation that can happen. You can have tools that can do repricing for you. You can have virtual assistants that can manage it, and that's not what was happening before for me. So guys, that's it. That's how I got started in dropshipping, and those are some of the big lessons that I learned. Probably the biggest lesson was just having faith that it would work for me. Like, probably the biggest regret for me, and it's fine, it is what it is that I wish I got started sooner. If I got started 2 years sooner in Amazon, I could have had an extra 2 years, and I mean, who fucking knows? I could have had probably hundreds of thousands of dollars and more profits saved up, and I could have probably quit phone flipping a lot sooner and just moved forward with it. But, it's fine. I started with the Amazon. I applied everything I learned into from Amazon into Facebook Marketplace. You know, and I've been doing that since 2021, and that's been, you know, absolutely fantastic. So that's it, guys. That is my story and how I got started and some of the lessons that I learned. So hopefully you might be able to take some of these lessons and not have to go through the years and kind of pain and learning lessons that I had to go through.